Doris? Hearing Doris's name, Jacob recognized that the sexy beauty at the end of the video turned out to be the vice chairman of Emgrand Group, who came to the scene to congratulate him when his daughter's studio opened. This surprised Jacob. After all, Doris, as the vice chairman of the Emgrand Group and a well-known business elite in Ors Hill, is still very well known in the city. Moreover, Jacob also knew that the Emgrand Group gave Claire a lot of decoration business, which can be said to be Claire's career. But he really did not expect that Doris would take the initiative to visit his home, so he hurriedly said to Claire, come on, Doris, the vice chairman of the Emgrand Group is here." "Ah?" Claire was surprised, and then a little nervous, and said, "Why is Doris here?" "I'll open the door for her." Elsa was also surprised. Although Doris's worth is far less than Elsa's, she is after all the vice chairman of the Emgrand Group, the second in command of the Emgrand Group, and Elsa's immediate boss. Elsa did not expect that her immediate boss would come to visit her girlfriend's house. Therefore, she was somewhat embarrassed in her heart, but now she couldn't leave, she could only bite the bullet and wait for Doris to come in. Claire hurriedly invited Doris in. Doris said a little apologetically, "I'm sorry, Ms. Wilson, I took the liberty to interrupt." Claire hurriedly said, "Doris, you are too polite. I should have visited you, but I haven't spared time for these 2 days. I haven't just started the holiday until today." Doris nodded, handed over the gift in her hand, and said, "These are some New Year gifts for Uncle and Aunt. Be careful, please accept it." Claire was very embarrassed and said, "Ms. Doris, this is really inappropriate." Doris smiled slightly. "We have been working together for a long time. You and I don't need to be so polite. Compared with our cooperation, this little care is nothing." At this time, Jacob and Elaine also walked over. Jacob was amazed by the young and capable temperament of Doris, while Elaine focused her attention on the gift box in her hand. Claire said to Doris enthusiastically, "Doris sits in the living room for a while." Doris didn't see Charlie in the hall, and felt a little disappointed. If she had left like this, she would be a little bit regretful. Hearing Claire inviting herself to sit in, she smiled and said, "Excuse me, then." Jacob smiled and said, "Don't bother, don't disturb, Doris, please come in and sit down. I will let my son-in-law make a pot of good tea for you." When Doris heard that Charlie was asked to make tea for her, she couldn't bear it. She waved her hand and said, "Uncle Wilson, you are too polite, don't have to be so troublesome." "Oh, it's not troublesome. It just so happened that there are guests at home, so let's sit together for a while." Jacob responded with a smile, then walked 2 steps quickly to the living room and greeted Charlie. "Good son-in-law, quickly make a pot of tea and entertain the 3 guests." Charlie nodded, stretched out his hand and opened the kettle on the set of tea. At this time, Doris also walked into the living room. As soon as she entered the living room, her eyes were focused on Charlie. Charlie also looked at her, his eyes met, and there was a hint of joy in Doris's eyes. And Charlie was also a little surprised at Doris in front of him. Today's Doris does not wear the clothes of a strong woman in the workplace, but wears a light coffee-colored windbreaker, with long wavy hair draped over her shoulders, sexy and charming. Charlie nodded slightly at her, and said politely, "Hello, Doris." Doris quickly replied, "Hello, Mr. Wade." At this moment, Elsa stood up and said a little embarrassingly, "Hello, Doris." Doris only saw Elsa and said in surprise, "Oh, Elsa, are you here too? Didn't you go home?" Elsa said unnaturally, I'll go to the airport in a while." The moment DeLong on the side saw Doris, his eyes burst into flames. Although he has seen a lot of beautiful women, he has never seen such a beautiful and charming workplace beauty, so he immediately felt a kind of heartbeat. He stood up subconsciously and asked Elsa, "Elsa, you haven't introduced this beauty yet?" Elsa hurriedly introduced. "Oh, by the way, Doris, let me introduce to you, this is my cousin, DeLong." After speaking, she looked at DeLong. "Cousin, this is the vice chairman of our Emgrand Group, Doris Young." DeLong immediately stretched out his hand and said flatly, "Oh, I have heard of the name of Doris a long time ago. When I saw her today, it seems she really deserves this reputation. I am DeLong, a descendant of the Eastcliff Kevin family." Doris nodded lightly, and said politely, "Fortunate to meet you. However, Doris was not surprised by DeLong's identity. Although she is not from a big family, she has worked in the Emgrand Group for a long time, has been in contact with many big families, and also knows many things about big families, and naturally she has some understanding of the Eastcliff Kevin family. Even Charlie, the young master of the Wade family, has known her for so long, and she naturally didn't feel superfluous when seeing the young master DeLong of the Kevin family. DeLong thought that he moved out of the role of the young master of the Kevin family, which would definitely make Doris admire him. Unexpectedly, Doris didn't seem to care about the fact that he was the young master of the Kevin family at all, and there was no wave in his expression. This made DeLong's heart a little depressed, and he thought to himself, I want to treat Doris as a key target. If Doris can be taken down, then my next year in Ors Hill will not last forever. Too boring, but this Doris doesn't seem to be very cold to me. She is just a professional manager, and the salary is tens of millions for a year, so why would she ignore me, the young master of the Kevin family? No? Isn't it too high-sighted? Therefore, he continued to persevere and said to Doris, Doris, I have long heard that you have extraordinary ability and are a business elite. If you are interested in developing in Eastcliff in the future, you can consider coming to our Kevin Group as a vice chairman. It's definitely much higher than the Emgrand Group. He thought that he could use a high salary to seduce Doris, but he didn't expect that Doris shook her head without hesitation. Thank you, Mr. Kevin, for your kindness, but no need. I'm pretty good at the Emgrand Group and I don't plan to change jobs. DeLong couldn't help feeling a little lost, but he was still unwilling to admit defeat, so he continued, Doris, Ors Hill is too small and it will restrict your development. It is better to go to Eastcliff. The sky is high, let the birds fly. At this time, DeLong only cared about picking up girls, but forgot that there was Charlie who he could not afford to offend. In fact, he didn't think that there was any problem in hooking up Doris in front of Charlie. After all, even though he was triggered by him and came to Ors Hill to live a hard life for a year, Charlie did not say that he would not let himself pick up girls during this year. Charlie saw DeLong's tricks deep in his heart and thought to himself, this DeLong really can't change the dog's ability to eat shit, and he has to pretend to be the young master of the Kevin family wherever he goes. In that case, then just give him another year and let him stay in Ors Hill for 2 years before leaving. Thinking of this, he immediately sent a WeChat message to Sarah. Sarah, tell your cousin Liang, let him convey to the Kevin family that DeLong's punishment period in Ors Hill will be extended by 1 year, and let them send WeChat notification to DeLong now. Sarah immediately replied, Charlie, did that DeLong make you angry again in Ors Hill? Charlie replied, he didn't mess with me, he just pretends to be coerced in front of me, which made me a little unhappy.